Hello and welcome to another episode of FPL Variance powered by Fantasypedia. Fantasypedia is the one stop shop for everything related to FPL, whether it's captaincy or transfer decisions. Fantasypedia helps FPL managers make optimal decisions for their teams. Make sure to follow them on Twitter for regular updates. And we're back. It's good to be back for about more than a week. And yeah, I am Zeeshan, your host, and I have with me Anshuman, my co host. And Anshuman, how was your previous game week? How did it go?
It went well. I mean, I was out with an illness, and that is why we didn't even pod last week. Most of us was out, and the game week was nice. If you can see, it's finally a green arrow. Had a grey arrow the last week. Didn't captain Haaland the week before. Captain Madison was lucky with that. But yeah, it's good to be back with a green arrow.
It is great to look at that green arrow. Not a great story for me. A huge red arrow. In fact, I more than doubled my rank. It was an absolute disaster. Just 43 points. The team looked good on paper, but it's what it is. The show must go on, and we have a lot of things to cover. And uh, we're gonna discuss Liverpool obviously because Liverpool have been very inconsistent this year. We'll also look at some of the mid-price midfielders and try to figure out if they are worth having over the premium midfielders because the likes of Salah are not. First of all, there's a major dilemma. The two premium defenders in the game, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Reece James, have fitness issues, and everyone in the community are looking out for a replacement for these two premium defenders. So, Anshuman, take us through it. What have you got in your mind?
Before we go that, G, I think there is slight issue with the volume. It's pretty low. Can you just check that?
I'll have a look,
Yeah, yeah.
please.
And with regards to the defenders, okay, so we look at the fixtures. When we go ahead, we have the Lego Mana ticker over here, which includes all the UCL game as well. So Trent is about out for 3 weeks to 4 weeks. A similar situation with James. They're saying that he's out for 15 days, which also essentially could mean 3 weeks. It could be 2 week, 1 week, and he could be back for United. Irrespectively, he's missing out Villa. And since Brentford is in midweek game and it's a game which is not that important to us, I think United is more important. I don't see us him starting that game as well. So both of them, if you have them, it is in the sell territory. Now it depends on where and how you're looking to use that money. So a lot of obviously popular replacements is Cancel or Trippier, and most people have them. Then you come down to Perisic, Robertson as an option. I'm not keen to go there because that's not my strategy. I think going cheap, something like Dunk, White, or even Gawi, I think that is more valuable. It allows you to get Salah and probably someone like in Jesus in your team going ahead. Even Kane, for that matter of fact.
It does, and it's worked for some people who've been brave enough, but because uh, everyone likes premium defenders, but I think apart from Cancelo, no one has really sort of delivered. You spoke about Robertson, and I think he's a fine option, but again, it's just that uncertainty with Liverpool, and they've been quite underwhelming defensively this year. I think I read a stat that they've conceded as many big chances as Nottingham Forest
Yeah.
this year, which is bad. Like it's quite bad. So yeah, the signs are not looking good. I pretty much agree with a lot of the names that you set out. So obviously, Brighton defender could be a good shout. Ben White again, he's a nice shot because Saliba is now no longer a cheap defender. He's now 5.1. He just keeps going up in price. My only worry with Brighton is that their manager, the new gaffer, is known for that heavy metal attacking football. So I'm just worried, even if the fixtures are fine, they'll always try to have a go at the opponents, and they might not end up keeping a lot of clean sheets. But yeah, someone like Webster could have, decent potential to maybe score a goal here and there. The one that stands out to me is because I'm looking at Newcastle's fixtures, and I think there is potential there, and they've been sort of not keeping a lot of clean sheets recently. So obviously, if you've got Trippier in your team already, or if you've got Pope, so in a situation where you don't have both of these, you've just got one of them. I think you can get someone like a Fabian Schär, who is still not very expensive and it still fits the strategy where you are not replacing a premium defender with another one. Like you said, Anshuman, you're just downgrading, saving 2 or 2.3, and that helps you to maybe get a better forward or maybe a Salah if you don't have him down the line. So yeah, I think that's a reasonable strategy. I'm not sure about Gehi because Palace they don't. I mean, what are your thoughts, Anshuman? Do you think Palace we can trust them defensively?
I mean, it's just a makeshift player to get into. The fixtures look good. So Leeds, Leicester, Wolves, Everton, Southampton. Although apart from Southampton and Everton, maybe I don't see them keeping a clean sheet in the other games. Maybe Wolves, I'm not sure. So they look like a team which concede a lot of chances through the center, especially at the back. So I'm not very confident. He's cheap. Yes, he's 4.3 million. That's the only advantage you get with him. If I had to, I'm looking at, as you said, Newcastle is a good bet, but already most of us have a double up on them with Pope and Trippier. So I'm looking at something like White. Now that might seem very odd since they have a blank, but I rather play 10 players in 12, get a clean sheet this week, and then get good 2 games again after the blank.
Yeah, I think that's a vital point because if you're looking at the fixture ticker over here, and game week 12 is a blank for arguably the two best teams in the league this season. So obviously Man City, and the other one is Arsenal. And I've seen a lot of teams, and it's the situation for my team as well, where I have three players from each of these teams. So it is probably something, and obviously, with other fires to put out, like Reece James having fitness issues as well. So a lot of people will be in that dilemma, right? And I think, as you mentioned, it comes down to the quality of your squad. Maybe you have a lot of these players. So I think the idea should be that you bench players like a Haaland or maybe defenders that you trust enough from these teams, or it could be someone like a Foden as well. If you already are ahead of the curve and you own him, and obviously we'll talk about Foden in detail going forward. But yeah, probably even if like, it's just 10. Just make sure to have 10 quality players. And I've seen some people consider a free hit as well. I think we'll need it later on in the season, and we've seen how uncertain it is. And this is just one blank game week, right? We could have probably more. So yeah, I think agree. Do you have any alternate suggestions for people who are loaded up on Arsenal and City for game week 12?
You can look at other options like Dunk. I like Dunk personally, just because the fact that he plays Nottingham next week. He had a good XG against Tottenham as well. Yes, they look like a team which prefer to attack and not defend a lot. But again, they can churn those clean sheets when they have to. So I can trust Dunk probably there. And he's also good on set pieces and goal. He has a decent goal threat. Apart from that, I don't think anyone stands out for me. There is Perisic, but again, it's very risky territory. Maybe Doherty if you fancy him and you want to take a punt on that. But again, it's very risky territory because you don't know what minutes they'll get. And also, there's midweek game because 12 is again midweek. Remember this. There will be rotation, whoever you get. And that is why I feel going White is safe. He's cheap and he gets you clean sheets throughout the next 3 games he plays. Most likely, he'll get clean sheets there. So I don't think it's worth like wasting that much money or someone like a Dunk because you don't know if he gets a clean sheet or not. Perisic maybe you can say upside, but I don't know for sure. Even the United game, I don't think it's a clean sheet for them necessarily. So again, White gives you guaranteed 6 points in my opinion. That is why I like him the most.
Yeah, I think he's that steady shout where he won't do fancy stuff, but he'll keep clicking and he'll keep getting in the points. And like we said, the money saved from that downgrade, if you want to call it that, will help you up front. And again, speaking of downgrade, there's been a bit of a downfall when it comes to Liverpool's form this season. So yeah, let's talk about that because that's been another. It's been a hot conversation throughout the season,
Yeah,
right? Most every episode.
just before we go ahead, so your final defender replacements if you had to like top 2 3. No love for Gomez.
No, I
Okay.
wouldn't go there. Yep. I
I
think
would be tempted by Doherty, but again, it's up to your risk appetite. I would pick him over Perisic because he's cheap. So even if he doesn't play later on in the season, if he doesn't play 2 consecutive games, I'm okay with it because he's just what 4.4, 4.6, 4.6 if I'm not wrong. So I don't mind that punt, but again, my top two would be White and Dunk. I think.
wow. I mean, I think Doherty is a good shout. Any other season, I would have probably transferred him in already, but it's just that uncertainty where eventually he will definitely get rotated, or he might just start a lot of games if Conte fancies him. So yeah, it's just that we don't know what we're gonna get, and like you said, it's the same. It's like buying a cheaper Perisic because I
Yeah.
really rate Doherty as an FPL option. When he's playing, he's really attacking. He could score goals. He could get you points. So yeah, that rules him out. I think I still like Fabian Schär. Again, it's purely down to your appetite. And some people do have the double up of Trippier and Pope, but I don't think a lot of people do because purely for the reason that they don't trust Newcastle enough. But I think at least in the short term, someone like a Fabian Schär could be a good shout, considering that if you're looking at a White, Ben White, for example, and he blanks in 12,
Yeah.
go for a Schär and, in the short term, and then maybe in game week 13 or 14, you get someone like Ben White, which is, again, it's just two transfers, and you're looking at six good fixtures between these two cut price defenders. So, yeah, Schär and White would be my pick.
And no
If
Gui again. Crystal Palace, you don't fancy them defensively, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, go there only if you want to just have it for namesake. I don't think they keep clean sheets, but you can take a chance. I mean, what do you expect out of a 4.3 million defender?
I think I look at because a lot of people are considering Guehi, right, and even Anderson, who's I think a bit more
Yeah,
expensive, but he has that sort of goal rate. I think I rate them as much as Leicester, and I know Leicester have a bad rep, but if you come like discount the disastrous performance from Ward initially, I think recently they've looked okay. They managed to get a clean sheet recently as well, in just a couple of game weeks back, and they have been very unlucky. Like they're conceding a lot of goals, but their underlying data is just, I mean, it's as bad as Palace. So
yeah.
if you're considering a Palace defender, I think a Leicester defender, someone like a James Justin or Castagna could be a shout as well. And yeah, I think I would rather go to a Leicester wing back than a Palace centre back, to be honest, looking at the fixtures forward.
Okay, okay. Let's move on to the main topic, which is Liverpool. So most of us would have ruled out Salah until yesterday night when he came on and scored a hat trick in 5 minutes. Okay, so we have four genuine options now, which is Salah, Firmino, Jota, and Nunez. Go ahead. I know you are a Nunez fan. You've been eyeing out for him, like you want him in your team. But for someone who doesn't own any of these assets, probably doesn't own Trent like me as well, what would be the approach? Because there is a midweek fixture that will come up, and given the minutes management that will come up, Salah was just rested, Jota was just rested. Who do you think starts the next three? Because that's most essential after City, which are the easy fixtures: Nottingham, Leeds, and West Ham. And who would you prioritize getting in?
I think honestly, if you're talking purely about nailed, right? Salah is, I think, right up there, and he's just had his rest. So I expect him to start all the league games going forward. But my concern with him is the same story. And I know when he came on in the Champions League game, he was playing a lot more central. But I think it is purely down to the personnel on the pitch when Salah came on. Harvey Elliott was playing on the right wing. He was hugging the touchline, and Salah sort of came on and he was playing that striker role. I think it was a one-off. So it's something that we have to wait and watch how it unfolds if Klopp really persists with that, because I don't think the 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2-2, whatever you want to call it, I don't think he can play that with those personnel, with someone like a Harvey Elliott in the Premier League, because then I am afraid things will get worse for Liverpool. They'll just get run down. So I expect Salah to continue on the right wing in the Premier League games, hug the touchline. He may get the odd goal or return here and there. He's on penalties, so that's a great shot. So if you're purely talking about the number of starts, I think Salah is definitely the favorite here. But the important thing is that the other three, they play centrally, especially Nunez, and I just love him as an FPL asset. He keeps hogging all the XG. I can't wait to get him. And what are you thinking? Are you planning to get Salah, or are you hot on one of these forwards?
So my initial plan was to get in Diaz and Nunez or Jota. So double up on them and get Robertson if I can. But now that Diaz is injured, can't go for a midfielder because there's nobody needed. So what I am thinking is, in game week 12, do I see Salah starting up top center? Yes, I do. That's the only game week where I want to captain him, and I will need to captain him. Apart from that, it's always Haaland. So does he fulfill what I want? Yes, probably. And going ahead as well, he's most likely to start. I think Klopp mentioned yesterday that Harvey Elliott and Carvalho can play on the wings. They're pretty decent at it. And if there's a 4-4-2 situation or 4-2-3-1 situation, Salah will start up top whenever necessary. So what I am aiming is the game week 12 game, wherein if I can get Salah and if I have to captain him, I think it's perfect. It suits the fixture turnaround suits because 12, 13, like Liverpool have the shortest turnaround between 11, 12, and 12 and 13. So it's probably only Salah that starts all three games and then they figure out. So that is the only reason I'm inclined to go Salah. Apart from that, if you're someone who's not going to captain Salah in 12 as well, then I would say save the money. Go for someone like a 8 million midfielder, get Jesus and Nunez slash Jota up top both, or go for Kane. Because it ultimately, if you're not going to captain them, go for the cheaper assets and stick your money and spread your money and get better assets overall.
Yeah,
It
I
also
think
allows you to get a premium defender after all.
it does. It does. And I think I agree with the notion. And you mentioned about potentially going for a double up Liverpool forward sort of a thing with Haaland. And I've owned Kane in the past, and he's done well. I've owned Jesus, but I think a big factor now when it comes to Arsenal assets is that the other day we saw Jesus winning a penalty, and the one who took it was Bukayo Saka,
Yeah.
and they are pretty much the same price. So I think that sort of swings it in Saka's favor. So I've got two Arsenal defenders in my team, and I've got Jesus. So I'm sort of thinking that maybe get Darwin Nunez in, and also maybe someone like a Diogo Jota, who is, I think he's safe for starts, and the injury situation with Luis Diaz sort of helps his case over here. So yeah, I am sort of fine that, and I think anyone who's looking for that bit of upside chasing, this is a great opportunity. So these two I'm definitely eyeing purely for the reason that you said that in most weeks we're going to captain Haaland. We are in that territory. Game
Yeah.
week 12 obviously will be that sort of a dilemma. So the plan is to at least get these two and have some extra cash in the bank. And I've got De Bruyne who blanks
Yeah.
in game week 12. And I'm sure the people, there are a lot of De Bruyne owners, a lot of Salah owners switched to De Bruyne very recently. So I think a swap purely because of the reasons that you said, right? That now there is a chance. And Klopp came out in the press conference and did say that, new role for Salah. He was playing as an inside forward when he came on. So if he persists with that, I think Salah will be back among the goals. He has penalties as well. So he definitely could be back on the radar, but I'm more keen on Nunez and maybe a double up with Jota, depending on your strategy, of course.
Okay, again, so if we narrow it down to the three forwards, no love for Firmino because he keeps on ticking and he is one of the better players from Liverpool at the moment. And historically, I mean, his prime was obviously 4 years ago when he was an prime FPL asset, but he's recovering and he's doing good. He probably starts more games than Jota or Nunez, I think. And I solely believe that he starts at least equal, if not more, because he can play two roles. He can play the striker and he can play that deep playing player as well if they need to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you fancy it, I would go Firmino. If I had to double up on the attack, I would not go Jota and Nunez. I would go one of them. And Firmino, I think with the form he is, you got to take that punt there. And between Jota and Nunez, I am inclined to Nunez more because he's more direct and central. What happens with Jota is he's more towards the touchline. Now, that could change when Robertson is back. Obviously, Robertson could be more on the wide area or going forward where Jota can cut inside. But again, we don't know that for sure. With Darwin, we know that he's more central, he's direct. And especially in the game, in the last Premier League game, everything was, again, I think it was against Arsenal, right? So
Yeah.
everything was going through Nunez and towards Nunez in that game, especially before the Diaz injury. Everything was Nunez. Salah was there, but he was way wide, and Nunez was at the end of everything. So if I had to take one of them, Nunez probably is first for me. Second, I would take a chance on Firmino, and third, Jota.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout, and it's a trend that we and something that I mentioned in the past pods as well. That my Liverpool pick would be the player who plays as striker for Liverpool. The
Yeah,
chances are falling there. We saw it in the Brighton game as well. Firmino sort of scored. Firmino obviously did well against Arsenal as well. So uh, obviously Nunez was on the. This is not a coincidence. It's just the way that Liverpool are playing. I think Firmino is a fine option, but I'm just afraid that now that everyone is available, and by everyone I mean the striker option, because you're looking at Jota, Nunez, and Firmino. All three of them can potentially play
yeah.
the striker role, and maybe even Salah. I'm just worried with the price tag that Nunez commands, right? That big price tag, and Klopp is under pressure to get him firing because he cannot afford that. If Nunez continues to fail, it will impact the whole team, especially with the way they're playing. So yeah, I'm not expecting Nunez to start all the games, but I think he'll start at least three out of the next four, which means I do like him. Also, it's probably to do with the nature of these players. And yes, Firmino has scored a lot of goals, but if he's starting a like a front two partnership of Firmino and Nunez. I expect Firmino to be the more unselfish one, where he's doing a lot of the hard work, and Nunez sort of benefits from
Yeah.
that. That is my thinking. Maybe I'm wrong, and Firmino continues to do what he does. So yeah, great. Firmino's done well, but I'm just sort of looking forward, and I see Nunez probably does outscore Firmino comfortably in the next four. That's my thinking.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, we still believe that Salah is a prime candidate if you have to go there.
Yep.
It gives you 12 as a captaincy, which is a great shout. But again, I think if I had to nail down the player out of these four who scores the most point in the next 5, 6 games until game week 16, it's probably Salah. down to the fact that Klopp has seen that it works playing him central. He needs to get his man in form, and I think Salah, he looked hungry when he came on for goals. So I think when you know the king is hungry for goals, you got to go there.
Indeed. And if you disagree with this, and for some reason you still don't trust Salah, for some reason you still don't trust the premium midfielders because they're not really firing. Even with Son, we've seen, they've been pretty inconsistent. There are a number of really good mid-price midfielders that you can look at, and they've been on fire. We spoke about Phil Foden earlier, and yeah, there are. It's not just Phil Foden. There are a number of mid-price midfielders who you can sort of target and bring in and go for a heavy sort of a forward line. So yeah, Anshuman, like take us through which of these 8 million sub 8 million midfielders stand out to you.
So we've not like picked up everyone. I think Zaha and Madison are someone which are very popular. Most people already own them, and they're not under dilemma because they have good fixtures. They're taking along, so it's fine. So we picked up 4 players which we think are prime candidates this week and next game week, or game week 13. Foden, Saka, Bowen, and Trossard. It may seem odd, but Trossard is there. But again, Trossard is good in terms of game week 11 and 12, and he's purely on the basis that he plays both the games, and both of the games are easy for him. He plays Brentford and Nottingham Forest, which concede chances. He's playing much more centered, much more direct. His stats have gotten better under the new manager. Like there's Bowen, there's Saka and Foden. Now, on base of stats, you can see on the screen, so Foden and Saka stand out obviously. But would you go there knowing that they're blank next game week?
Definitely not. I think Saka is a wait for now. I think he's a really good option for reasons that I think we already discussed while we were discussing Jesus. So yeah, there are a lot of pros. I think uh, from game week 13, Saka will be my target. Great fixtures. He's now on penalties, and he's been ticking along really well in the recent weeks. Even though a lot of people don't own him in the social media FPL Twitter sphere. So I think he's a fine shot, but yeah, just hold on to him for maybe a couple of weeks, get him in 13. Foden again, same thing, right? You mentioned. I think you have to hold on if you've not owned these players so far. I do like Trossard, and a lot of people are not comfortable owning him, but the way he's been playing and the way Brighton set up. Uh, so Welbeck is another one. I think he's sort of caught my attention as well. Again, he's not a midfielder, but if you're looking for a punt on a cheaper striker, I think Welbeck has been doing well. Gross is the one who does all that dirty work, creating space, and the ones benefiting are Welbeck and Trossard. So I think there's a lot of potential out there. Bowen, I just don't like him too much. I mean, the stats have been better than what it was start of the season. He has not blanked, in the recent past. I just don't feel like. What are your thoughts on West Ham as a team, and not just on Bowen? Do you think they are reliable? Because you're not just then looking at Bowen, you're also looking at someone like a Skamaka, the new striker that they've got.
Yeah.
And but again, Antonio came on and scored, so there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I think.
I think they found their 11, which is something that is encouraging in terms of West Ham. The only good thing is that they probably found their 11 if they stick to it, with Antonio being on the bench, and for whatever changes they've made recently with the 4-2-3-1 situation. But again, I'm not very impressed by Bowen. If I had to, I would go for Trossard, which gives you 2 game weeks, which is good. Also, I'm not sure of how Bowen performs against Liverpool. It could go two way. It could go two ways. Obviously, Liverpool are not that great defensively nowadays, and the West Ham can score. But again, I don't rate West Ham very highly as an attack this year. They've been not that good. So it purely depends. And also, Trossard allows you, if you are someone like a De Bruyne owner who wants to go De Bruyne to Trossard to afford Kane, you can do that with Mitrovic there with an injury concern at the moment. So that is why I like Trossard. He's also captainable if you don't want to go Salah. In 12, he has a good fixture. So if you want to take a very wide punt, because there's not a lot of captaincy shouts apart from the Liverpool West Ham game, probably Brighton, Nottingham, and the Leicester game. So I think Trossard would be second. Yeah, going game week 13 onwards, I think the priority should be getting Foden first and then Saka. Yes, you said that Saka has penalties, but again, I favor Jesus more than Saka given they're the same price point. And because he's more central, I think he's been not involved in a lot of goals because he's been giving a lot of pressing and dropping deep work because the games were big games. And that is what was required by the manager. Now going ahead when the fixtures are easier, I think Jesus will take along again. So the priority has to be Foden. He's just too good. He's just playing too good at the moment, and you know that you want him. And I think for people who have De Bruyne, I think you can replace him with Foden. I think purely because of the points he's providing at the value he is at. So Foden has to be the priority. Second would be Saka if you want to. Otherwise, I think stick to Trossard. He gives you decent value and go for Jesus.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think Foden has been, if you want to call it a sneaky pick for, because I had him at the start of the season and I made the mistake of selling him, and then a couple of weeks later he starts firing. Obviously scores a hat trick. You enjoy it as a City fan, but not so much as an FPL manager. Having sold him, and if I'm not wrong, he started every single Premier League game this season,
Yeah.
which is very encouraging if your manager is Pep Guardiola, because he does not have a great reputation among FPL managers, in terms of rotating. So yeah, I think that's a fair shout. It's a sign that Guardiola does trust him a lot, and he's getting may get hooked off early here and there, but as long as City have scored 3 or 4, there's a good chance that he's involved, and that's all you need: points in the board, and he's nicely rested for the next game. Another player, another sub 8 million midfielder who's not on this chart here is Mason Mount, and there's absolutely no discussion about him, but I do fancy him. And when Potter was appointed, I had this feeling, and I sort of tweeted about it as well, that I think Mason Mount will be his key player. And a lot of people don't like him because I think he's a bit old school, and they have their thing, but he gets the job done, and he's a manager's dream. Pressing a lot and doing a lot of stuff that the manager likes. Now with Potter, is I think Chelsea are more creative as a team, and he's more involved. He's playing in that front. I do fancy him. Like, what are your thoughts on Mount? Do you think it's a valid punt, or do you think it's too early, or it's a no go at all for now?
I mean, it's valid, but I think the issue is with Potter's lineup. So you can't expect who starts the next one. If the fixtures are close by and we have to still play UCL, we're still not top of the table. We still have something to do there. So I think rotation is eminent. You will see him getting subbed off around 60-minute mark whenever possible. Yes, his new role is where he is flourishing. That is where he flourishes the most. I agree with that. But also the fixtures turn around. They play Arsenal United. They play tougher fixtures. Then they have Newcastle as well in the upcoming game. So maybe not Mount, because I feel Saka, Foden, and probably the likes of maybe even Bowen can outscore him. And Madison Zaha are already there in your team. And then you have the likes of Salah, De Bruyne, everyone. Like, you have a lot of pool of players which you can go for, who can easily outscore Mount in the upcoming run of fixtures and are more guaranteed on minutes. Even Foden, so he started all Premier League games and he doesn't have a game week 12 fixture. And beyond that, we've seen that City is almost top of the table in UCL as well, so they don't need to really worry about that. And they've been resting Foden for that as well. So there's barely any rotation. Arsenal don't have to worry about that as well. That is why I think that Mount isn't a pick, and that is why you should probably not go there as well.
Well, I think fair points, totally. Uh, uh, I mean, yeah, the rotation bit does. I just have this feeling that he will continue to start. But again, that could be a case of subconscious bias where you do have a
Yeah.
liking for the players. So I think it's the best case if there is any sort of uncertainty. We try and avoid it. And but yeah,
Yeah.
these players are
As a fan,
definitely.
I mean, I say that he could be starting. He could start all the games from now till game 16. But the probability of him missing out a couple is not that less. He can easily miss out a couple of games. And also, when you're comparing him to other players who will start all games for more attacking teams, that is where the difference lies for me.
Oh, okay. So when you talk of Chelsea as a unit, right, and let's say someone wants a piece of the cake, uh, is there any attacking player that you think definitely starts maybe the next three, four, five?
No, they don't, because that's how Potter plays. At the moment, don't, because we might just prioritize the UCL game in between and the tougher games. So it's probably not the period you want to punt on. I think there are better options available.
Definitely are. And yeah,
I
you
mean, we
spoke
thought
about.
about Aubameyang would start the next against Wolves, and again he was benched. Sterling was benched. You never know.
Yeah,
So it's not worth taking the risk at the moment.
yeah. And I think even Pulisic featured, and he's not featured a lot. So I
Yeah,
think
I
Potter
mean, we
will
have a
be.
deep squad, so we can obviously bench our first team players in one game, and then in the midweek game we can play the second team. So again, that's, and Potter is known for changing up his squad a lot. Even at Brighton, he used to shuffle around a lot, and that is why, like, the likes of Morpay and all of these guys were not really good picks at that time. So I would avoid at the moment.
Yeah, and the fact that Chelsea have a lot more quality, which makes it even worse, because he's just looking at quality options every now and then. Every
Yeah.
time he has to rotate, maybe hook off a player every now and then. Yeah, that's a fair shout. Uh, Yeah, I mean, you spoke about Salah, like going back to him, and he could be a prime candidate for captaincy. So let's talk about the captaincy options sort of this week, because the main guy, Erling Haaland, he is up against Liverpool. Would you trust him with the armband again this week?
I mean, I would. I've seen Liverpool defend; they don't look nice. I've seen Haaland attack, and he's incredible. So there's no doubt in my head. And it's also become a case where almost every week is about 200 like EO. So you're losing out a lot of points. It is easy to say that, oh, if my captain outscores him, but is there any player which will definitely outscore him? It looks unlikely with the amount of goals that he's scoring. It is very unlikely, and he's getting assists as well. So I think stick it to Haaland, and if you want to gain rank or capture points, go with your free transfers, go other places. That is where you can gain rank.
So I, absolutely no differential sort of a thing. Like you even someone like Son, you wouldn't go
I
there.
tried captaining Madison, and I mean, my only bet when I captained Madison, I knew Madison would score a goal at least, and my bet was that if Haaland scores two, Madison scores one, it's almost the same points, and then it's okay. Out of six goals, Haaland had involvement in five. So you can't just really predict and match him. He's just too good at that, and he's getting involvements in almost every goal, which is the problem. So if he's scoring one out of three, like how usually City players do, then it's not an issue. But now, if he's getting involvements in three out of three, you can't do anything about it. I think just stick it to Haaland and sit and relax.
Yeah, I think again, I will sort of not very often I'm keen on captaining the most captain player, but it just doesn't seem worth the risk. I saw it
Yeah.
against United. I was very happy that Haaland was my captain during the game because he was just yeah, like you said, it's not just the goals, right? He's getting the assist as well, and he's sort of benefiting. I think teams are finding hard to cope with City in the sense that when they're trying to man mark Haaland, the others have a lot of free space.
Yeah.
So that just opens up all these extra possibilities in terms of getting returns. So yeah, I think that in terms of captaincy, that's a fair shout. Stick it to Haaland as well. Uh, and yeah, last but not the least, we will preview our teams for the
Just before
upcoming.
that, also a lot of people I asked just a couple of questions which are popular in the community. One,
Okay.
if Mitrovic is out, would you still consider selling him?
As someone who's not owned him, I think I would because we discuss so many striker options. I think there is huge upside there. Looking at someone like the like of Kane and potentially if you own De Bruyne and if you're downgrading and that frees up so much cash. I think there are lovely forward options out there. Fulham have done well so far. Mitrovic has done well so far. I think I would sell Mitrovic regardless, maybe even for a well back if I'm looking at the next two fixtures.
I mean, I wouldn't because I have Mitrovic and I'm looking at if he's on the bench, if he can be on the bench this week, I would bench him for Pereira. And then because they play Thursday next week, which is the last fixture of the game week, I think he could be back, and that is because when I have Tony and Mitrovic, I think Mitrovic has the better fixtures at the moment, and that is why I want to hold him. And I can sell Tony because he's more expensive to, and it's an easier upgrade to a Darwin or a Jesus.
Yeah, I think it's a classic. Maybe you could call it a don't buy, don't sell sort
Yeah.
of a situation with Mitrovic. But yeah, that makes sense. Any more questions that we've got?
And if you had both injuries like Trent slash James and a forward, so which injury would you prioritize first removing from your team?
I think the premium defenders because it frees up so much cash and you can do
Yeah.
so much more to it, especially with the blank coming up now. So that would be myself.
And again, we don't think free hit is a good option in Game Week 12. I think if you can field 10 players, that's more than enough. Given the fact that there are so many injuries in everyone's team, most people will struggle to field a proper 11. Even if they do, they'll have the like players of the like of Neko or someone like an Andreas, and they're not the best options. So if you can field good 10 players with a core team of 7, 8 players, I think that's totally fine. Don't take an extra hit. And that is why I think you probably want to look at the fixtures beyond 12 because teams like Arsenal, City have great fixtures beyond 12, and that is when you want to attack them.
Indeed, yeah, and it's something that we wanted to cover in review, but and again, there's still another week for game week 12, and it's obviously about the quality, but I think the captaincy decision will be very crucial. So I can see a lot of teams with 10 players outscore the teams with 11 players purely
Yeah.
based on captaincy because Haaland won't be there, and it's so easy to get it wrong during these weeks, and that whole concept of variance and just your captain getting chances but not being able to score, and someone else captain someone who gets two chances, two goals, is game over. You're looking at a 30-point swing. So yeah, I think captaincy will be really crucial, more important than the fielding a 10 versus an 11 sort of a situation
Yeah.
next in game week 12, of course, not for now. Yeah, are we looking at any more call outs or questions?
I don't think so. Those are the popular questions. I think the forwards, the defenders, and which Liverpool players to target. And if possible, if you can save a transfer this week, I would recommend going with two free transfers into the game week. Blank game week is always useful. If you can't, probably get in a player who can get you 6 or at least 4 points rather than just 2 points this week. That will be helpful as well. Anyways, we'll move on to our teams. First, I'll go ahead with my team. So I made a very late change. I posted my team, which had Emerson in my team, and the last minute I thought that I don't want to play Andreas because I don't really fancy him scoring. He scored a wonderful goal, obviously. He scored 6 points, but there was one off goal. If I look at hindsight, he wouldn't have scored that one all day. So I made the change from Emerson to Session, which could be helpful this week as well. And my team looks like Pope, Trippier, Cancelo, James, Madison, Martinelli, De Bruyne, Zaha, Tony, Haaland, Mitrovic. And on bench, I have Session, Andreas, and Walker Peters. It's as template as it gets. I'm probably going to remove James to a dunk or a white, depending on my strategy. But that's the only move I'm thinking of at the moment, or just save a transfer if I can.
Yeah, and yeah, captaincy on Haaland, as you've
Yeah,
already
that's
said.
Haaland. Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah. We'll look at my team lastly, and yeah, a disastrous game week. But again, it looks good to me on paper. I've got players like so I'll start with my midfield first. I've got the double of Madison and Barnes, and I'm happy to keep them. I think they'll keep ticking along in the next few game weeks. I've got De Bruyne in the midfield. I think he'll do well against Liverpool. Should be a pretty open game. I've got Zaha, who I'm not very comfortable owning anymore. I was pretty excited about getting him, but yeah, he's got the fixture, so I have to keep him. He's
Yeah.
got abilities as well. Yeah, got Pope as my keeper. I've got Ruben Diaz. Got an Arsenal double up in defense with Gabriel and Saliba. So I'm going to start them because Reece James is obviously out with an injury. And yeah, front line I've got Haaland and Jesus and Oli Watkins, unfortunately, who has racked up all the XG in the world in the last two fixtures, but he has not scored or got me any returns. I might be just forced to keep him this week purely because I have other fires to sort of put out. So Ruben Diaz, I think, will definitely make way for me this week, not because he's a bad option. It's just purely out of the fact that he gets me 6 points, which is great. But there is Cancelo, and he keeps getting 15 and 18 pointers every now and then. So I want to free up that City spot, and I don't see us. I don't see Man City keeping a clean sheet versus Liverpool. I think there'll be goals in that game. So I think it's a good week to sort of take him out, especially with the blank coming up. And he's no Cancelo, so he's not obviously not getting attacking returns. So yeah, that's one player I think I will definitely take out. I might also take out one of my strikers, obviously not Haaland because he's gonna be my captain, and I'm planning to bring in Darwin Nunez this week. I think he will score against us. He'll score against City this week. I can see that happening, and it just saves me a transfer till game week 16. I think is a good long term option. So yeah, considering that, maybe one free transfer, maybe a -4. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. So that's about it. I've not taken a hit this season, which is surprising. I'm usually a manager who takes a lot of hit, and I haven't. And when you talk about -4, it does get me onto my nerves that I want to take a hit as well. So somewhere down, probably game week 13 will get an opportunity to take a hit. But
Well,
anyways, yeah, that's about it. I think we have wrapped up with most of the questions. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to comment them down below. We will be answering almost all of them as much as we can before the deadline. So make sure you comment down below. And if you're new to the channel, if you're watching this video for the first time, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button as well. It really helps us put out more content and push our content to other people. Anything
definitely.
else, Z?
No, I think that's it. And we couldn't make it last time, like we said,
Yeah.
apology for that due to unforeseen circumstances. But we plan to continue this. We'll keep churning out regular content and not just here, even on Spotify. So if you're an audio listener, you could just head on to our channel on Spotify and yeah, YouTube. The videos will keep coming every week. That's it for now.
Yep.
And we'll be back with another video in the next game week. It's a goodbye
Yep.
until then.
Cheers, guys. Bye.